Since the 1920s, most of us have had some memories with public broadcasting, whether this was growing up with Sesame Street or perhaps watching Antiques Roadshow on a Wednesday with not much else to do. It is a great place for educational entertainment for kids and adults alike, without a lot of commercials or sensationalism. Now, one might ponder how such a broadcasting method came to be and how it sustains itself in today's ever more advertisement-heavy world. And why and how do we have public broadcasting in its current form? Public broadcasting has existed in America since the 1920s, but this was done by independent stations relying entirely on donations to function. The Public Broadcasting Act of 1967 was enacted to facilitate the educational public programming with little to no monetary or governmental influence. This directly led to the creation of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a publicly funded nonprofit tasked with providing universal access to non-commercial, publicly available content. This is usually done by funding independent public access radio and television stations. Further associations, namely the Public Broadcasting Service, or PBS, and National Public Radio, NPR, were created in the early 70s to further support these stations. Now, what does the Corporation for Public Broadcasting do? The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, or CPB, was created to fund both National Public Radio, NPR, and Public Broadcasting Service, PBS. It should be stated that it does not heavily control either of these stations. The CPB does this almost entirely through annual budget given by Congress plus interest. An average of 95% of this budget goes purely to public broadcasting, either through direct funding, setting guidelines, or other various community projects. The CPB is headed by a board of directors that can hold up to 9 seats, with no political party being allowed to have more than 5. Each board member holds 6-year terms. Together, the currently 5-member board of directors governs the CPB, as well as setting policy and programming priorities. Now that we know about the corporation that makes everything work, we should move on to explain one of the entities that we associate with public broadcasting, PBS. PBS was created in 1970 as a more centralized and unbiased alternative to the National Educational Television, or NET. Its first affiliated stations began broadcast in 1973, just in time to report on Watergate. PBS currently have a network of 354 affiliated member stations run by nonprofits, state agencies, local authority groups such as school boards, and public universities. Funding for these networks is provided through 3 key means: the CPB itself, frequent pledge drives, and by contributions from private companies and viewers like you. Thank you. Private companies are only allowed to donate provided they don't influence programming. Finally, PBS would be useless as a public access TV network without programming. When referring to programming, PBS relies on its network of member stations, primarily for its national programming. The single biggest provider of content would be WGBH, a major public access station even before the advent of the CPB or PBS themselves, with shows like Arthur or the documentary series Frontline. Other stations, such as WETA, handle national news. WETA and other stations even commonly work with other organizations, such as the BBC, or British Broadcasting, for programming. The main focus of PBS is educational and informative content. This content can be for adults or children, though adult content is less explicit and not just for a child audience. Usually, this is either news of current events, documentaries, theater or concert performances, or historical dramas. Arguably, the most famous part of PBS is PBS Kids, their programming block for children's content. Since its inception, PBS has hosted a wide array of content for children of all ages. This can range from teaching them language arts, math, science, and even more general things like how to be social or deal with life events, be they everyday or difficult for children to understand. A former cornerstone of PBS used to be local TV programming without a real focus. For many, this was a way for low-budget creators to broadcast their own material. However, with the advent of digital video websites, PBS has largely pulled back on this, in favor of the programming referred to just moments earlier. Now, What we've learned is public broadcasting in the US is a much more complex subject with a much more rich history than sometimes we give it credit for, and certainly more than I have time to speak on. On a federal, organizational, and even local level, there are many moving parts to provide a rich, informative, unbiased viewing experience. So the next time you have some free time and a cable TV or a radio, maybe it's time to sit back and see what public access can offer you.